and save to the cloud.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay, cool.
Okay, hello everyone. So I'm going to be your instructor for the Intro to Unix command line workshop. In this workshop, we're gonna, so my name is Diane Lefaude, maybe I should start with that. I'm working in Alexander Hoffman lab, mostly on RNA sequencing. But yeah, I've been using Unix since maybe like 10 years. And like you, when I started, I was a bit scared, I guess, by command line, but you get used to it and it's very convenient. And even as biologists, it's really good to have some basic knowledge because most of the server are going to run Linux or Unix-based things. So not being afraid of the terminal is a good thing. Okay, so let's, I guess some of you might have had my email about software to download. If you didn't because you registered late, then it's okay. We'll go through that during this today lecture. Yeah, okay. So what we're gonna see during this workshop is mostly today, we're gonna have an introduction about Unix. We're going to learn how to navigate through the Unix file system, how to create, move, basically deal with files in a command line environment in Unix. So being able to navigate through the directories, being able to create, copy, move, rename, remove some files. So that's going to basically be today, like being able to do operation on files, very basic operation on files. Tomorrow, what we're going to see is how to read files, visualize them, and some part of text processing. So how you would extract some data from your file, and also some regular expressions. So we'll see that tomorrow. And on Thursday, we're gonna see a bit more text processing and scripting, so mostly using Oak and some shell scripting and how to run job on Huffman too. So that's the summary for the workshop. Okay, so why do you want to learn Unix? Oh, and before I go too far, I mean, if you have questions, feel free to write them in the chat. I'll try to go after, like, we're going to see a bunch of comments. So after each comment, I'll try to see if there is question in the chat and go through them. Because I think people will learn from your question too, like other people's. And what did I wanted to say? Yeah, so I'll go through them. I'll try to make sure I check the chat. And yeah, and the best way to learn is to do it yourself. So I'm going to try to be relatively low when we type command and try to explain very well. But I would definitely encourage you, try to do it at the same time as me. I'm going to try to be slow so that you have time to try it on your computer and get familiarized to do that. So yeah, I really, 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 really want you to try to run the same command and just not watch me, because it's going to be way more efficient to learn. Yeah. So why, even as biologists or researcher, why do you want to learn Unix? So usually in research, we have like very big data sets, and a lot of them are in text format. So being able to process huge data sets without having to open them in like Word or whatever, or Notepad, or it's quite convenient, because sometimes just even opening the file is a huge deal for like your laptop. Or so being able to process them in the command line can be very easier. So yeah, so you can have files that look like that are 100,000 of line. And so if you want to do something on that, it might be easier to be able to do that command line and not having to open the file. And then what we're going to learn is from this type of file, you might want to extract some relevant information. And so how can you do that without without opening the file and in command line environment to make it easier? And then we'll learn, you might want to do some simple analysis on them. Then we'll try to learn how to do that. Yeah, and the big question is when we have large amount of data, well, we still need to manipulate them. And sometimes doing with graphical interface, it's not the best way when it's big. So that's the main reason. That's partly the main reason that we want to learn Unix. And the second is that a lot of the server, even you could have server in your lab, for example, they're probably going to run Linux-based. A lot of the computing cluster are running Linux or Unix-based operating system. And so all these mostly command line systems are very efficient and stable when running Linux. So that's often why they also use Linux. And so that's bring that often for a lot of biological tools that we use in biology, they're actually, if they require quite some memory, they're going to mostly be thought for Linux based, and they're going to often need to be run command line. So that's why it will help you to have some command line knowledge. And given that a lot of cluster and so on are Linux, so there is actually a lot of information you can find online. So basically what we try to do here is give you the basics so that you know enough. And if you need more, then you should be able to relatively easily find the information you need online, for example. But at least you'll have the basic that's cover a broad range, and you should be able to find more if you need more. Okay. So why command line is quite nice? Well, as I guess most of you use graphical user interface. And well, graphical user interface is it's easy. It's basically very intuitive and very easy to use, which is why they're so popular. And basically anything you do on your laptop is gonna mostly be using graphical interface. And command line is often a bit harder, at least to start, because you need to type to know like all the options and so on. But however, sometimes in the graphical interface, you kind of limit it to what the interface allows you to do. And sometimes there is more option, but you can't just access them with the graphical user interface. So that's why the command line can be better, is because you're way more flexible, usually in terms of options that you can use and so on. A second point is, and I think it's a very important point, is the graphical interface they do require a lot of system resources. So if you do the same thing once command line with the same software, once command line and once in the graphical user interface, the command line way of doing stuff is going to require way less resources. So that means you could process bigger file or this type of thing. So it's, yeah, when you have huge data, then it's important to not add any overhead for just the graphical user interface. Another big point is, well, sometimes when you use graphical interface, you have to like move from your keyboard to your mouse like a lot. And that's can be a strain to your wrist and so on. So being also able to do everything on the keyboard can be quite relaxing, and not having to move like constantly between mouse and keyboard. Another thing is, yeah, it's kind of go back to it's more flexible. So like you can also write script that would process all your files the same way. So that means it's also going to be reproducible, which would be harder to do if you use a graphical interface. Then you would need to redo the same motion with your mouse, the same click and so on all your file, because we might not have a batch processing utility. So when you use command line and you make script, then you can really easily just run your script for all your files the exact same way. Yeah, and also in general, like when you have new version, graphical interface can change, but usually the command line version won't change much, and they'll keep, like, even if they change the names of the option, they'll keep a compatibility name. So basically the same command should still run, even if it's another version. So there is a lot of advantages of using command line compared to graphical interface, mostly when you want to, when you have a huge data to work with, or when you want to have something that's very reproducible and do it on a lot of files. So that's really where having command line does bring a lot to you. Okay, so I'm gonna just go through how Huffman 2 works very quickly. So here you would have your computer, and then you would connect to the first layer, which is the logging node. And on the login node, what you will do is submit bigger jobs that require more memory. And then you can also get back the result once they're done. And so what the logging nodes are going to do, the logging nodes are connected to a lot of computing node and storage and so on. So when you send a command to do a job, then it's going to send it to whichever computing node is free. So depending on what you require, because you can specify how much memory and so on you'll require when you submit a job, so it's going to check on what's available, and when it finds compute node that has enough time storage as you requested, then it's going to send your job to the computing node, and whenever this one is finished, it's going to get the result back, and then you can also get them back to your local computer. So that's how it's work. Okay, so now we want to connect to the Huffman 2 cluster. So I don't know how many of you don't have it yet. Can you like raise your hand to see how many, for the one that don't have received their Huffman 2 account, just for me to see how many of you, can you raise your hand on the participant thing? Okay, so I see one. Okay, two. Okay, so it looks like most of you actually have an Huffman 2 account. Okay, so we'll see for the one that don't. But yeah, so we'll first talk about the one that do and then the one that don't. Okay, so to connect to the Huffman 2 cluster, you need to connect the SSH, which means secure shell. So it's just a way to encrypt your connection, and then you can connect to the Huffman 2. So if you're using Mac, you can directly use your terminal. So yeah, please, if you use Mac, open your terminal. If you use Windows, you need a SSH client. So that's a couple of options here that are listed. So I should have listed them yesterday in my email, but if you didn't, then you can go to this website and download one of these. So I would recommend Mobile Xterm. I mean, I just actually discovered it quite recently, but it seems quite nice in terms of feature and so on. So I would tend to recommend this one first, but if you already have PuTTY on your computer, you don't need to download Mobile Xterm, for example, or Cwin. So you just need one of those. So if you didn't get my mail, if you don't have any SSH client, then it would be good if you could download it. And then I'll go through how to set it up. So for the two people that don't have an Huffman 2 account, so if you're using Mac, you could probably still use your terminal on your local computer for what we're going to do today. And if you're using Windows, you could still also download like Mobile Exterm. It has a local terminal where most of the command should also work from what we're going to do today. But basically, instead of doing it on Hoffman 2, you would do it on your laptop. And if you're a bit scared of doing anything wrong on your laptop, you could also use like this. Go to this link website. It's a online Linux emulator that seems to work quite well. So I tried it a bit. And so you should also be able to do anything we're going to do today if you use this online Linux terminal. So I'm gonna go through the how to set up like Mobile Exterm and PuTTY. But at the same time, make sure you download one of them if you don't already have one of them, so that you can connect after. Okay. And if you need, yeah, you can Google them, you'll find them. So to connect to the Hoffman 2 cluster for people that have Hoffman 2 account, so if you're on Mac, you can use your terminal. If you're using Sigwing or that, you can basically just go to the command line and type this command. So SSH is to initiate a SSH connection, and then it's going to be your Hoffman 2 username and the host name. So the host name will be for all of us hoffman2.idre.ucla.edu. So I'm going to do it on my terminal. And so if you have Mac Sigwing, please do it at the same time. Okay. So then it's going to prompt you to type in your password. And so when you type your password, you don't see anything, but it's just security reason. So it's typing, so don't worry. And like if you make a typo, you can always press backspace. It's going to press backspace. So if you forgot like where you added your password, I usually just press a bunch of backspace until I should have reached the beginning and start again. So I'm going to type it, and like 1 out of 3 times I mistype it. So let's see, did I type it correctly? Yeah, no. Okay. Okay, so we'll go for that. So hopefully all people that are on Mac also have the same screen as me and can connect to Hoffman 2. And so for people that are using PuTTY, in the configuration, the session, you would type the host name here, which would be the hoffman2.idre.ucla.edu. The port by default is 22, so that's fine. And you want to make sure the connection is SSH. And then you would save your session. This way you can quickly connect. So you would click save and then open. It will appear here. And then you can open, and then you should have the same a terminal that asks you your password. And for people that use Mobile Exterm, so it's going to look like that. Then you would click on session, and then you would make sure you choose SSH here. And then it will ask for the host. So same, it's going to be hoffman2.idre.ucla.edu. Then you'll say you need to specify your username. You'll put in your username. The port is 22. It should already be set up because that's the default port for SSH. And then you would press OK. And then you should have a comment here that asks you your password. Okay, so there's someone that, well, I can't say for sure on Hoffman 2, so there is a question that someone typed too many times a wrong password. Usually Linux-based will ban after 3 wrong password. but usually they only ban for 10 minutes. So if they didn't change the setup on the Hoffman 2, then you can try in 10 minutes, see if it works again. Otherwise, you will need to contact the IDRE people. But I would like wait like 10 minutes and see if it works in 10-15 minutes. Okay, so do most people that have Hoffman 2 otherwise are good? So, well, I'll wait a bit. I can go back. Let me know if you want me to go back to something. MobaXterm. Yeah, I'm gonna show again MobaXterm. So yeah, it looks like that. Then you need to click on session from MobaXterm. So here, then it's gonna bring a Windows like that. Then you need to click on SSH and type in your remote host, hoffman2.idre.ucla.edu, your username, and then click OK. And OK, and it will bring the command line here. Okay, and so if you don't have Hoffman 2 for the 2 people, so actually I'm gonna go back. If you're on Windows, you can still use MobaXterm. It has a local terminal that should have most of the same commands. So then you would click that if you don't have Hoffman 2, if you're on Windows. And if you're on Mac, you can either use your terminal or otherwise there are a couple of like online terminal. So online, so I don't know what you prefer. If you, okay, is everyone okay with Hoffman 2? Can you make like, raise your hand if you're not okay how to connect or if you haven't managed to yet. Okay. Do you need more help? Do you need me to go back to any instruction on how to set up? Oh yeah, it's the one that has the wrong password. Okay, so I guess that's only one person that mistyped their password that's not connected. So I guess we can move forward and well, yeah. I mean, if you, for the one that mistyped his password, you could, if you're using MobaXterm, then for now, you can also try the local terminal so that you can still follow and type in the command, and you can try later to reconnect to Hoffman 2. Otherwise, same, you can use the online emulator. I'm gonna send the link in the chat if someone wants to try the online emulator because it doesn't work on the computer for now. But I think we can move forward given that it seems that everyone has everything set up. Okay, so let's continue then. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, so the first thing, so you should all have something that looks like that on the right-hand side of my screen here. And like a couple of things I want to show you too. So first, if you can read here, it says you should not compute on the login node. So basically login nodes are not as powerful as compute nodes. And so they basically here very basic nodes that you can just to allow people to connect and submit their jobs. So they don't have much of RAM or they're not particularly powerful. So you should not launch anything that need a lot of resources on it. because if you do so, then people that going to try to connect might not be able to. And so if people can't connect to Ubuntu, then that's kind of bad and they're not going to like that. So yeah, so if you need anything quite RAM intensive or like writing to disk intensive, you shouldn't do that on the compute node. For what we're going to do today, it's really very light use, so that's fine. We basically just going to browse files and so on. And this type of thing is totally fine to do on the logging node, like list your file, copy some folder, as long as there are not too many stuff and so on. That's totally fine to do it on the logging node. But if you want to run something that's computationally intensive, then you should not do that on logging node. And so the second thing I want to show you is here. So that's your username, and that's login 3. So here, when I connected today, I'm on login 1. So that's basically tell you on which node you are. And so you can see that you should be on the login node. I think it goes from 1 to 4. So if you forget if you're on the logging node or not, just look here what's returned, and that's going to tell you if you're on a logging node or not. So let's start. So this thing here on the right is called shell. So it basically it gives you an interface to the Unix system. And so shell are often bash, they can be ZSH, but like the most basic is bash. Basically what it does, it waits for you to type a command and then it'll send it to the computer to execute it. And whenever you command finish, then it's going to display its output. And so, yeah, so basically, we're going to use this type of shell to run our command, program, shell script, and so on. So one thing you might want to do, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to change my password, but if you have the default password, it's usually a good practice to change it, like the first time you connect or stuff. And to do that, you would type passwd, which means password. I'm also going to try to always write down what it means, because I find it easier to remember if you know what it means. So yeah, so I'm going to always try to write down like why this is a shortcut and so on, so that you can remember it more easily. So you would type passwd, that means password, and then you would press enter, and then it's gonna tell you you're gonna change your password for your user. And then you would have to type your current password and type your new password twice. And same, you won't see anything of what you're typing, but it's typing. So if you want to change your password, you can. I mean, you don't have to do it right now, but like if you want to do it later, you definitely can. So I'm not going to do that because I like my password. Okay, so then I'm going to go through how the Unix file system look, so that you know how to navigate in it. So basically, we have the root, that's the slash thing, and then we have a bunch of folders. So like the box will be folders. And so the one in blue here are just system folders, so you don't really care about them. You'll never look in them, or you don't really need them. It's just everything for the system, where the software installed, where other stuff are like default config and this type of thing will be in these type of folder. But what you interested more is in the home. So basically the home is a folder that will contain all the user information and all the user stuff. So in the home, you'll have, for example, you have a user John, then the user John will have his home folder directory, which is a home John. And you can have a user Marie that also has her own home directory, which is this thing. And then you can have subfolder. And so if you look at the path of a unique file system, basically you have the root, that's the first slash, then you have home, and then when you kind of to separate folder, it's also a slash. So you would have slash home slash Marie, and that would be the home directory of our user Marie. And similarly for John, if his portfolio folder, we have this path, so slash home slash John slash portfolio. So that's how paths are written in Unix. Okay, and the first command we're gonna see today, well, kind of the second with the password, but it's pwd. So it's kind of look like password, but doesn't mean the same thing at all. So pwd means print working directory. So, and what it does, it's gonna display the current directory path. So if I type that right now, and please do the same, you'll get an answer that's your home folder directory. So on Huffman 2, it's /u/home, and then they separate by first letter. So in my case, it's /d and then /d. So for your case, these two things here are gonna be different. That's gonna be your username, and that will be the first letter of your username. But that's give you the absolute path or where you're located. Okay, and the first thing we'll try to do is create a new directory. To create a new directory, the command is mkdir, like make directory. So make dir, I would say, it's easier to remember. And then it doesn't answer anything. So it doesn't answer anything. That means it completed correctly. So it was successful. And yeah, you can create easily any directory. Yes, so I have a question on directory. Yes, you can create directory that are outside your current directory. We'll see that. I'll show you that later. So here I created the first directory, that's Unix Workshop. You can also create like directory, multiple, like within a directory. So I want to create directory D1 that's in the Unix Workshop, but I'm not currently in the Unix Workshop. So I can still do that, and it's gonna create a D1 directory as a subfolder of the Unix Workshop directory. So yes, you don't need to be in the current directory to create a directory. And so the next command we're gonna see is cd, which is like, you're gonna use that a lot. Cd means change directory. So basically that's allow you to move from one directory to another directory. And so what you do is you type cd, and then you type your directory where you want to go. So you would type, okay, and so you type Unix Workshop, and then if I press enter, I'm gonna be in Unix Workshop. And you can actually see it here. So now, instead of the tilde here, now it's written Unix Workshop. So that's tell you the name of the directory you're currently in. So that's also, if you forgot where you are, that's also very convenient to just look quickly here. Okay, and so we can see that before we had the tilde. And so what does the tilde mean? So the tilde means your home directory. So if you see tilde, that's because you're in your home directory. That also means basically it's a shortcut. So that also means you can go very easily to your home directory by pressing tilde. So wherever you are, if you just want to go back to your home directory, you can press cd, you can do cd tilde, and you're gonna go back to your home directory here. So that's like convenient if you just want to go back to your, and we can check by doing the pwd and we get the same answer as before. So I'm gonna go back to the Unix workshop and I forgot to press pwd, and you can see now if I press that, I have u home ded lofode, that's my home, and then you have Unix workshop. So that's your, yeah, so this full thing here is the path of your current folder, and which is basically your home directory followed by your folder name. And I'm gonna some more comment. So let's go to the T1, for example. So you can, there's like a couple of shortcuts for CD, like the dash. Max, okay, I'll go to your question after. Let me just finish that. So this dash mean wherever the previous directory you were in. So if I press that, I should go back to Unix workshop. And so it also tell you where it's going back. And you can see I was in T1, and then it tells me, bring me to Unix workshop. And then now I'm in Unix workshop. And there's another very, very convenient like shortcut. This double period means go back to my parent directory. So it's like up one directory. And so if I do that, I should go, so I'm here. So if I do that, I'll be in that folder, which is my home directory. And so you see now I'm in my home directory. And that's that doesn't mean home directory, that just means a parent. So if I was doing Unix workshop T1, and so if I was cd double period, it would bring me to Unix workshop because that's a parent of D1. And with this double period, you can have multiple. So you can go up two directory. So that would be go up one directory, go up another directory. So if I do that, I'm two directory down my home directory. So actually, I'm gonna first do the pwd. So you see I'm here. So if I go up one directory, I would be in Unix workshop. And if I go up another directory, I'll be again in the dlofo2. So you can do cd double dash a double dot slash double dot. So that's mean up to directory. And then you see I'm directly up to my home directory. And so these command cd, you're probably going to learn them very rapidly because, yeah, you have to navigate through file, and that's very easy to navigate through files. And there is another shortcut that's not very useful for CD, but it's still useful to know. Like if you have a single dot, it's mean current directory. So we'll see that later. For example, when you copy file, if you want to copy file to the current directory, or when you move file and so on. So you might want to specify it has to be in the current directory, and that you would do that with a single dot. Okay, so yeah, so as I was explaining, I guess you can refer to, most of the time that you're going to change directory, you're often going to use relative path. So what's relative path is basically the path relative to your current position. So, and that's what we just did right now. You just give the path compared to wherever you are. I'm in home directory, then I want to go to Unix, I just write Unix. So that's very convenient to move through directory and directory structure, because you just have to think, where do I want to go compared to where I am right now. But you see that when we type pwd, let me go back into Unix workshop D1, for example. if I type pwd here, you see the full, it gives us something that's quite long, and that's the absolute path. You can also totally use an absolute path to move directory, but usually it's not super convenient, so people don't do it, but that would totally work. And you might want to use that when you do links, but we'll see that later today. Okay, and just before I go back to the chat with some question, there is a couple of tips that's going to be useful. So, and I did them already. You might have noticed or not. But yeah, so when you want to navigate through your history or your command, let's say I want to cd and I just did cd, then you can press up and it's going to bring the list of command in the order you did. So that's the last command I did, that's 2 before last, and so on. So I'm pressing up. And so that's basically all the command. And if I press down, then I go into the other direction. So you can press up and down to go back to a command you recently typed if you want to type a new one that's similar. There is also another, you can search through the recently typed command, and that's also very useful. That's also very useful. I mean, here I haven't, so if you press Control R, that's just what I did. I press Control R, it's going to bring a reverse search. And basically you can type a command you're looking for. So I could cd, for example. And that's an older one, but normally it should bring the last one you did. And then you could, once you're here, you can continue to press Control R, and it's going to bring all your cd, the last cd command. So it's going to filter from all the commands you type. It's only going to show you the one that have cd because I specified cd in my search. So that can be very convenient if you want a specific command that you run quite some time, but and that's not like just right before. So that's easier to find it again. And so when you do that, if you press enter, it would execute that exact same command. So sometimes you don't want to execute that same command, but just like take it as a base and change it. So you can, for example, press escape or space or something else. And then you see that change on the left. And now I'm back into my typing command line, but it's just write down whatever command I was on. So that can be very convenient if you want a command that you run a bit of time. So it might be more convenient than doing the up like for 20 times or something like that. I mean, that would totally work to do the up command for a while. So you don't have to use the search, but sometimes it can be convenient because it's going to filter all your command based on what you're typing. And couple of other tips that are very useful. So you might have noticed that I was typing quite fast my my path and so on. So because Unix have autocompletion, and so basically, I mean, that's super convenient to browse your file, because when you start typing, it's going to suggest. So if you press tab, it's going to autocomplete and suggest what you need. I'm going to go back to the Unix workshop. So here I'm in Unix workshop. So I have a folder D1. So let's make another folder D2. I'm going to show you the autocompletion. So if I do cd and I press D, and if now I press tab, then it's going to autocomplete up to D because I have two subfolders. One is D1, one is D2. So it doesn't know which one I want from the two of them. So it's autocomplete up to wherever it can guess what you want. So when you're here, so that's one tab press. When you're here, you can double press tab. So if I double press tab, it's going to suggest me what the options are, which is very convenient if you forgot that you had another directory that had a similar name, it's going to just list you. So double press tab is going to list you the option, and then you can just finish typing either one or two and run your command. And so that's very useful because this way you can browse very quickly through your folder and so on. And you won't make a typo because it's easy to make typo. So that's very, very useful. So up and down to go back in your command, and tab to complete your path. That's why doing command line and browsing through files, it's not so difficult. That's because the auto-completion is amazing. Yeah, and another tip that I go through right now is whenever you either wrote a long command and you realize you forgot to do something before, or you're stuck in a command because you didn't give them the right argument or so on, the first thing you need to try is Control-C. So let's say here I'm typing Unix Workshop, or here I'm cdd2. And actually, that's not what I want to do. So I can press Control-C, and I need to go back to my terminal. I can press Control-C, and basically what it does, it's either going to try to stop the program that's running, or it's going to just clear the line. So if you started to type a command and you realize that's not what you need to do right now because you forgot to do something, then you can just Control-C, and it's going to bring a new line. So you don't have to do backspace to delete the full line. You can do Control-C, and you can see here. So it's actually show you I did Control-C. So I did it a bit earlier here too. And so the hat is kind of instead of the control. So if you see hat something, it's usually like control. So here it said I press Control-C. And so that can be helpful if you wrote a long line and you realize that's not what you want to do, then you would do Control-C and you'll have a new line, a new empty line. It's also very useful if you're stuck in a command. So like you have a script with a for or while loop, and you're realizing that's never going to finish because you made a mistake and you don't have any break to break out of your while loop. Then you can also try Control-C, and it should stop the process and kill it. So it should abort the process. So I'm gonna show you that. So I'm gonna type this command here, the sleep 100. And what this command does, it just wait for 100 seconds and then just exit. But basically it's gonna make my computer just wait for 100 seconds. So if I press that, you see I'm here and I can't really type anything. I mean, I can type it, but it's not going to do anything until this command is, I mean, I could try to do cd d1, but it's actually going to wait until the sleep 100 is finished to try to do my cd d1. So if you're stuck like that in a while loop or here, you can try Control-C, and you see it's aborted my command and I'm back to a new line. So if ever you made a mistake, you forgot an argument, or you're stuck in a program, then first thing to try is Control-C. That should stop everything and should bring you back to the command line and so on. So that's a couple of tips that you can use, and that's going to be very useful to use. Up and down arrows to navigate through your history. You can also do Control-R to navigate through your history. That has a search function. Tab to autocomplete is like super, super useful. And Control-C to clear your line, stop a program that you realize you made a mistake, or that somehow you forgot an argument and you kind of stuck. So that's what you should do. Okay, so I had a couple of questions. So first one, can you create directories that are outside of your directory? I think I showed you that before. So you can totally do that. So here, if I do, if I was to do that, so I would go up one directory. So that would be in my home directory, and then I would create another folder that's Unix Workshop D1. Oops. Oh, I said CD. Okay. So I don't want CD. So basically, yeah. So here it's telling me I don't have any file or directory that has that name. It's because I try to move instead of creating that directory. So yeah, if something is not right, you should get an error that basically would tell you what's wrong. So I wanted to make a directory, so you can see I don't need to be in the current directory to create a directory. I can create it in another directory, subfolder, parent directory, whatever. Max subdirectory you can create with mkdir. Normally you can, I'm not sure there is a max. So the person that had an error, so I don't know what you're using. So sometimes like the Mac terminal use older version of command than like most Linux will have. So that could be one reason if you're using the Mac terminal that it didn't work. But yeah, I think that ZSH or most of shell that are recent enough, you should be able to. You're using Huffman 2. Make dir 11123. Okay. I should work. I don't see why it shouldn't work. Let's say day one, or D3, just one. Let's try. Yeah, I think you can. Okay, so I think you can create only one, maybe, because here it's going to try to create test 2, but test D3 and test are not created. So, and I don't also have D3, so this one shouldn't also work. Yeah, so you can only create the last one. So you would need to have the other one, but you can create multiple directory at a time. So what you could do is do like D3. I think that should work because I'm first creating D3 and then I'm creating the test within D3. And so you see that works. Maybe the P option might work. We can try that. So P option, so P option, I often use it when in makedir, when I don't want to check if the directory exists. So that could also maybe solve it, even though I'm not 100% sure. So yeah, that seems to work. So yeah, if you want to create multiple, I mean, I'm gonna still see. So we're gonna see that command just later. Yeah. So yeah, if you want to create multiple directories, the P option will basically say you don't have to check that the path exists. So it's gonna create everything. This P option. Otherwise, another option would be first to create the first directory and then do it kind of recursively. But P option is probably the best if you want to create a long path in one command. And I had another question. Can we do multi-change directory instructions such as go by one directory and go to another folder in one line? So yes, you can definitely go. So let's move to cdd1, for example. So if I want from cdd1 to go to Unix Workshop D2, I could totally go up one directory and then go down to D2. So you can do something like that. And now you see I'm in D2. So you can move to sister folder or wherever by going up a certain number of folder and then going down, basically. Yeah, so you can totally CD in one command, basically from wherever you are to wherever you want, with the right number of going up and then the right path to go down. You can move from one place to the other. And the other option, if you have a lot of folder to go up, you could also start from your home. So you could write something like that wherever you are, if it's shorter than doing like 5 up, or so you could also rewrite from your home directory whatever path you want to go if it's shorter. So I think that's on the common. So it's been an hour. So if you want, guys, we can make a short break, like 5 minutes, like coffee break, bathroom break, leg stretching break. And let's say we start back at 10 past 10, so that you can stretch and so on. I'm going to post the recording. And I'm going to stick around to answer more questions if you have more. Where is it? Okay, so let's start again after this short break. So yeah, I did probably do all that, but if you want, try to make some more directory. Can be a subdirectory of something. Try to move in your directory a bit. And yeah, try also to see the path or the different directory you create. So I'm gonna do some of that. So I'm gonna go back to my home directory. And then, so I already have D3, but I can create a D5. So yeah, try to create some of that on your own. I mean, you can follow what I did, but you can also create more. I'm going to do a D5 because actually I'm going to do D3. So if you do mkdir, and that's something that already exists, it's going to tell you that you can't create this because it's already exists. And so that's one thing, yeah. So I'm going to create a new one. Then you can cd directly into that one by putting the relative path. So Unix workshop D5. And now if I type my current directory, so print working directory, I'm in Unix and I'm in D5. And yeah, so you can go up to a sister directory. So you go up 1, which is Unix workshop, and then you go down 1 to T1, for example. And you can type your working directory, and no, it's Unix workshop D1. Yeah, so now you know how to move within your directory. You know to create folders. So let's see, what do we have next? So yeah, we have folders. We know how to move within those folders. So now let's try to create a file, because so far we don't have any files. So there's a couple of text editors that are quite popular. Nano is one of them. There is also VI or Vim that's very popular. Nano is quite popular because it's relatively easy when you start, even though it's less powerful than Vim or VI. I tend to mostly use VI, but I'm going to show you both. And you feel free to use whichever one you feel more comfortable with. Some people prefer Nano because it's quite easy. For VI, Vim, you need to learn a couple of commands, but it's not that many. And once you know those, then you're good to go, basically. So let's start to create. Oops, I need to go back to my terminal. So here I'm in day 1. So I'm going to create a file. So this text editor, so that's Nano, and then you need to specify the file name. So I'm going to call it test nano.txt. And so then I'm going to press enter. So now add that, and I can write things. So I can write something like my first text file. What did I write with nano? Okay, so you can type that. And once you're done, so I guess that's one of the reasons some people, when they begin, prefer nano, is because you have all the shortcuts that are written on the bottom. So we can't see all because my terminal is a bit small, but you can see them here. So, and you have the shortcut that's written, so that means you don't have to remember them, so which is quite convenient when you start to have like a reminder of what the shortcuts are. And so you can see to write out, it's like this hat and O. And I told you when I press Control C, we saw the same hat. Basically, that means you need to press Control O to write this file. So if I press Control O in nano, it's going to tell me, it's going to write to this test underscore nano.txt, and then you just press enter. I mean, you could specify another like Mac format or Windows format, but by default, it's going to be Linux format for text file, and that's what you want. You just press enter. And then it told you it wrote one line. So it wrote the file one line. And then we're going to quit. So yeah, if you forgot to wrote the file name, then when you write out, I think you can specify the file name. So if you just press nano and type enter, try to do the write out and then type the name, I think it should work. And then if we want to quit, so say it's a hat X, and so we're gonna quit. And so we quit. So that's nano. So yeah, so some people like nano, and I think it's mostly because it gives you all the shortcuts so that you don't necessarily, when you start, you don't have to remember them. And the next one is Vim or VI. So it's like Visual Display Editor. So it's very similar. It's same type of command. It's like VI or Vim. Basically, often VI is a shortcut for Vim anyway. So yeah, either type VI or Vim. That should bring the same. So I'm going to type VI. And then it's exactly like nano. It's VI and the name of the file you want to create. So here I'm going to create vi test vi.txt. And so I'm going to create another text file. And this time it's going to use vi. So if the first time you open vi, there might be something written here that tell you what vi is and so on. Then you just press enter. And then you have this. And so when you type something, it actually doesn't type. It's because, and that's I think why some people prefer nano when they start, is VI is a bit more complicated because it's way more powerful. So basically the way VI works, it has different mode. So when you start, you're kind of in a command mode. So that means what you type is going to be command for VI to tell him what you want to do. And it also has an insertion mode, which basically say when you're in that mode, what you type is really what you're typing. And so this fact that it has multiple mode makes it way more powerful, but also a bit harder when you start. But you don't need to learn many of the shortcuts. So I'm going to just go. That basically is the only shortcut you need to learn for VI, to use VI or Vim. So first one is press I. So when you start VI, you have this thing here. And when you press I, it's going to go into insertion mode. So if I press I, and I press something else. So if I press I here, it say insert. And that's tell me no, what I type is basically what I type. So I'm going to type something, second file with VI. And so that's, yeah, so first you open it, you press I, then you can type, it's insertion mode, and it's written here. And so when you're done and you want to tell him, for example, no, I just want to tell VI, save my file. Well, I can't do it here because I'm in insertion mode. So everything I'm typing. So first, when you're done, what you want to do is press escape. Or basically, anytime you want to go to the command mode, you press escape. And now if I press escape, you can see that this insertion mode disappeared. And now what I'm typing is going to be a command to VI to tell him what I want to do. And so that basically is a command you can use, like the very basic command you'll need to know. So column write, W for write. If you press enter, it's just going to save your file. So it's just like the button save on your Word editor or something. You can also do Q. If you were to do that, it will try to close the file. And here, because I have unsaved change, it wouldn't be happy. What you often do is write quit. So basically, you first save, and then you exit. So we're going to do that. And the last one that sometimes can be useful is a column Q exclamation mark. So this one say quit, even if I haven't said change, don't save them, just quit. But yeah, so basically that's what you need. In most cases, you need to press I when you start, type whatever you want, press escape, and press colon WQ for write and quit. And that's kind of all you need to know to use VI. So even though it's a bit more intimidating when you start, there is really not many shortcuts you really need to know to be able to use it. So you're going to do that, and now it's quit. So that's VI, and VI has a lot of, because of this command mode, it has a lot of useful shortcuts. So it's like way more powerful than Nano in that matter, but it's also harder because you need to learn more shortcuts. But yeah, at the beginning, you basically just need to know I, escape, and column WQ to write quit. And if you know that, then you can do whatever you need. If you want to learn more, there is here's kind of reference card for VI on Mantu. So I put the link here that has way more shortcut. So you can copy stuff, you can undo, and so on, but it's all shortcut. Okay, so I create my first text file. So I just saved it. So I hope you all did that and good with that. And so the next thing, so we have directory files now. We know how to create files. And so how can I see what I have in my directory, for example? And that's the next command we're gonna see. It's ls, it's mean list. Basically, it's gonna list you a bunch of information about what you have in your directory. Okay, so someone is stuck in VI. So yeah, so in VI, if you're stuck somewhere, just press a bunch of escape to go back to the command mode. So try to press a bunch of escape and then try to do the column right quit. Yeah, sometimes if you type something in the command, it's gonna think the next thing you type is something else in the command. So press a bunch of escape if you're stuck in VI. And then just a quit. Escape not working. Okay, that's weird. You can try Control C to cannot write. Okay, so cannot write. what did you type after VI? Did you say a file? So when you enter VI, did you specify a file? Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna pause and help Marie.
Yeah, sorry, it might be easier if I just say it. So I typed it and then I pressed escape to get back into the command.
Yes.
And then I did like, I probably did the wrong thing because I did shift and then the colon.
Yeah.
And then it's showing me these, sorry.
Yeah, continue. So you press the colon.
Showing me these two bars at the bottom. One is this black line. This is like the name of my file .txt and then a little like plus sign. And then underneath that, it's in brackets, it says command line. And so if I like do the same thing, I can get into this command line. But then if I type in WQ, it gives me an error saying that it's an invalid in command line window.
Okay, so you
or I could probably try to just do Control C in there.
Yeah, try Control C, but you're probably in another command window, and pressing escape doesn't work, you said.
No.
Let me open VI.
Yeah, right. So I did. If you press like Shift and then the colon. Okay. Yeah. Mine gave me like a really weird thing.
Usually, I mean, yeah, usually when you press a bunch of escape, it's going to go back to telling you on what line and so on you are. So if you can get that, then the column should work.
Yeah, it's I
mean, I could. Do you have like greater than sign at the beginning of your console or something like that?
No, it like basically shows up as your thing, and then like at the very bottom, it has this black bar, and then it has the colon, and then the tilde. But it won't let me type anything in there.
So when you launch VI, you did specify a file name.
Oh, you know what? I think I might have just fixed it.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, but so now I'm in the same place that you are.
Yes. So now you should type.
How do I get out?
Okay. So now if you are here, just press escape to make sure, and then type the colon, right quit, and press enter.
Okay. So yeah, I guess the issue is that, like, do you have to press anything before you press the colon? Because I pressed escape, but then it won't let me type the colon.
I don't see why.
I see. I have to do shift.
Yeah, the colon is with shift. It's really typing the column. So shift semicolon gives you the column, and then the right quit.
Okay, thank you. So sorry.
No, it's okay. I'd rather everyone make sure they know how it's worked for whenever you're very alone. Okay, so I'm gonna just quit my file, and I don't need to save here. I'm just gonna quit. Okay, so the next command we're gonna see is ls. So we have files, we have folders, and now we want to see basically what's in our directories and so on. So ls is a very useful command, and basically how it works, you type ls, then you can add a bunch of flags depending on what type of output you want. So depending on the flag you put, it's going to show you more or less information, basically. And then you can specify if you want to see a specific file name or directory. So here I'm in D1, I have a couple of files. So let's try ls. And so it's going to list me the file I have in my current directory. which is the D1. So I have these two files that I just created in my current directory. And yeah, so that basically gives you the name. And so I don't have many here, but if I do the same on my home directory, have, well, where my stuff. So I have all this stuff in my command directory. And actually you can see, normally you should have coloring in most of the terminal. They will color. Basically the blue is a folder and the normal color is a normal text file, and that's links. We'll go through that later. But if you see something color, it's a directory, and like plain normal color, it's text. So that's also kind of convenient to tell you what's a file and what's not a file. So that's ls. And there's a bunch of flags. Some are very useful. So -l would mean long list. So it's going to show you more information. You have also -s, which is going to sort your file by size if you want to see which one is bigger. You have -t that's going to sort by time. So it's going to put the most recent file first. You can also use -ih. So that's human readable. That's mean like if you have things that are gigabytes, it's going to write like 4G instead of 4,000 whatsoever bytes. So that if you want to see sites, that's much easier. And then you have the -r, which reverse the order. So if you were to sort by modification time and you want the oldest first, then you would do a -tr. So we're going to try a bunch of these flags just to familiarize ourselves with them. And yeah, we'll go back to manual after. Yeah, maybe I should do that first. No, let's try a couple of these ls flag. I'm gonna just go back here. So let's try that on my home folder because I have more stuff. So very useful is ls-l. So basically, oh, I'm D1. I didn't do the home folder. I'm gonna do the home folder. So I'll give you more information. So here it's give you some information about file permission. I'm gonna go through that later. I'm not sure what this one is. This one is basically who owns the file or the folder. So in my case, myself, and that's the group you're belonging to. So like on Hoffman 2, your lab group or whichever group you have, they like consider as friends. So we're also gonna go through that a bit again. And that's the size. So here I didn't do like the -h, so it's all in bytes and so on. And then you have when it was created, I think, or modify, I'm not sure which one of those, and then the name. And it's also the coloring also show you the type of file it is. If I do LH, then it's going to be human readable. So you see now it's writing 4K instead of 4,000 bytes. So that's easier to see the size of your file, folder, and so on. Well, I mean, size of folder are usually not the same as the size of all the files in the folder. But for files, that gives you how big your file is. And then let's do it on the couple of, if I do that on the two files that I just created, so they're quite small, so we can see they're only like 30 and 24 bytes. And you have the date. So if you were to sort by time, if you were to add a T, then you'll see that the first one it's ordered is the VI because it's the most recent one. So it's by default, if you do T, it's ordered by most recent first. And if you wanted to have the oldest first, then you would add an R. And now it's going to be a reverse. And if I wanted to sort by size, I would do a capital S, and it's going to order by size. So biggest first also. So that's a couple of flags you can put. And so you can combine flags. So you see I didn't write -L, -H, -S. You can just put a dash, and that gives you option, and you can put all of them together, like this type of option. So this ls is very useful, and ls-h or ls-lh if you want more information. And so you can ask, but what if I don't know that? How can I know what option exists for whichever command? So we're going to go into that, how to get more information. So of course you can use Google, but there are also a lot of manual page and help page already built in Linux. And so I'm going to show you how to go through it and navigate through it. So the command to get more information about a command is man. Man means manual. It's display the manual page of whatever command you want. So you would type man and then your command. So let's go to the manual page of ls. And then you'll have something like that. And it's tell you what ls is, it's list directory content. And then you have all these options that exist. And so here we can see -a will also show you UDEN file. And basically there is a bunch of options, like ls has a lot of possible options. And so how do you navigate into that manual page? Because, well, you need to be able to. So you can press up and down arrow. It's gonna go up and down one line. So you can go like that. Up and down arrow, it scrolls the file line by line. You also, depending on your keyboard, you could do page up, page down. It's going to go up or down one page. And if you don't have the page down, page up, you can also use F or B. So for forward, backward, F or B, it's also going to do either one page up, one page down. And what's also kind of convenient sometimes is to search within, because some of these managed pages are quite large and big. And so being able to search through them, it's quite convenient too. Mostly like if you want to see if you can sort, for example, so I could search. So the search command is, it's kind of like in Vim, it has command. So it's a slash. It's a slash, so you would press slash and then you could search sort. So you would do that. And then to go to the next occurrence, you need to press N, enter. N. And so you see it did highlight. So you press slash, whatever you search, enter, and then N will give you all your occurrences. And so it's highlighted. And then if you press N, it's going to show you the next occurrences and so on. So that's where if you wanted to see how can I sort with ls, that you would have find sort by modification time here. That's the one I showed you. So that can be very convenient when you're looking for something and you want to see if it exists. Okay, and to quit, basically, if you do escape here, you see you have, again, the column as in Vim. And basically to quit manual page, when you have the column, you just write quit. And it's actually open, like, I had to do it twice because it's open to manual page when I do that. I'm not sure why on Ubuntu it has the POSIX and the Unix manual page. So just basically when you're here, you have the column as in VI, and then press a bunch of Q to close all the manual page that open. So that's one way you get more information and like all possible flag option that the command has. So you can do man and the command name to get more information. Google works. Sometimes going through the manual page is easier. Another thing that might work, so most of the Unix-based command will have a manual page. But if it's software that you downloaded, it might not have a manual page, but usually it will have a help page. So usually if manual doesn't work, your command doesn't work, you can also try your command -- help. And some of the Linux base command have both a help page and a manual page. So you could also, type ls -- help. And that's actually print on the screen. basically here it's the same as the manual page. So it might be a bit less easy to go through, but that's two ways that you should be able to find some information. So yeah, software that you download might not have a man page, but they should have a help page. So if you want more information about a command, either try man or try -- help. Okay, so yeah, that's how you get more information. And now, okay, so if we go back to the ls command, and I'm gonna again do it on my home folder because I have more stuff. Okay, I need to retype it. Anyway, you can see it here. So I'm gonna go through what this first thing means, because it can also sometimes be useful. So all the first column here is file permission. Well, okay, we'll see that after. So file permission. So basically how you read that, so you have the first column or the first letter that tells you the type of file it is. So like in my case, the D means that this is a directory. And as you can see, all the ones that start by D here are also in blue. The L means it's a link. So that means it's like a shortcut, basically. And when there is a dash, that means it's none of those. So that means it's like a plain file, a normal file. And then you have a bunch of R, W, X. And so you have it's basically 3 groups of 3 letters. So the first group of 3 is what permission do you have? What the owner permission, or basically you have. The second group of 3 letters is what your group permission are. So basically the group is your friends. So it's on Hoffman 2, like my group is Hoffman because my PI is of Alexander Hoffman. So basically anyone that's from my lab would have would be access to be my file depending on whatever the permission here are. And the last 3 are basically anyone else. So like the rest of the world, what permission do the rest of the world have on your file? And so usually they're just gonna have read. And for folder, they're gonna have execute, which just allow to like read what's inside your folder, but not touch any of your files. So file, so like my file, you can see people can read them, but don't modify them. So that's by default what you're gonna have. And so you can modify the permission. So for example, if you want to, let's do the first command, please. Also, you can do it at the same time. Let's list the permission of my test nano file. So you can see, so the first one, it's a plain file, it's a normal file. Then for myself, it's this 3 here. So that means I have read and write permission, but I can't execute it. And then my group can read it, but don't do anything else. And everyone else can read it, but don't do anything else. And so you could change the permission. For example, if it's an important file that you know you should not modify or whatsoever, because it has like reference and you just want to make sure you don't remove your reference, you wouldn't need to modify it. You could change your own permission. So like remove the write permission so that you're basically sure you won't change it. And so how do you do that? So you would do chmod, which means change mode, which is like change the permission file of that file. And so how it works, it's you need to specify what you want to change. So you can say, I want to change the user permission, or I want to change the group permission, or I want to change the permission that others have, or I want to change everyone's permission. And then you need to say if you want to add a new permission or remove a permission and which permission. And then you can specify your file. So for example, if I want anyone, if I want to make sure no one can modify my file, like me, my group, and the others, then I would press A. I want to remove a permission, so I would press minus. And I want to remove the write permission. And I want to do that on my test nano. And so if I press enter, and now I redo the ls, then you'll see now the permissions change. We're all the middle one are dash. I mean, these two were already dash, but if they weren't, they would have been put to dash. So you can change permission like that. So that can be useful if you want to prevent yourself from deleting something, for example. And another one that's useful is to add, for example, if you will see later, but when you write a script, you need to be able to execute it. So you might need to add to your user usually. So here I'm adding to myself. I'm going to add a permission, so it's a plus, and I'm going to add this execute permission. And so if I list again my file, now I have the X that appear here, and you can also see the color changed because I can execute that file now if it was a script. Okay. And so you can combine that. So if I want to allow myself and my group to be able to modify my file, then I could say UG. That means myself and my group. And you can do the same with here. If I wanted to say I want my group and myself to be able to write and execute, then I would write that. So you can put more than one user type and more than one permission at a time when you want to change. So I could do that, and now you'll see I can read, write, and execute, and people in my group can also read, write, execute, and the other can only read my file. So, and I'm gonna remove the execute because it's not a script. So here I'm removing the X from anyone. So it's gonna just make sure no one can execute. And now it's white and not green because you can't execute. So that's how you can change permission. And yeah, as I said, you'll need to do that if you create a script that you want to execute. So you'll need to add an execution permission to yourself. And so we'll see that later when we write script on the third day. And you might want to do that if there is some file that you really don't want to mess it up. You could change your permission to make sure you can't write. So basically, write permission is modify and delete. So if you don't want to modify or delete your file, you might want to remove the write permission. And another thing I had before in my slide that I didn't go yet is this. So when you do ls, you can also list a bunch of files. So if you do just ls, someone asked on the permission, can you change permission setting of other group members file? So you can only change if you can, normally the owner/user will be able to change. If you have write permission on that file, if you have write permission on someone else, of the file of someone else's group, your group member, then I think you can also change the permission. So as long as you have a modification permission on that file, even if it's not your own, if it's someone from your group, you should be able to change the permission. But if you don't have write permission, then you won't be able to change, to modify the permission of that file. Okay, so let's go back to our ls command. So with ls, so if you just type ls, as I was saying, it's list all the files in your current directory. But you can actually also So there is the star when you type in ls or another command in bash is often a wildcard. So if I press star .txt, I'm basically going to list only text files. So here I only have text files, so I'm going to list the same. But if I was to do that on my folder, so let's do that. Where am I? So here, and you can also combine path. So here I'm going to list my home directory and all text file in my home directory. So you don't have to be in the same directory. If you don't specify any path, then it's going to list your current directory, but you can also specify another directory if you want. And so here I'm just listing the text file I have in my home directory. So you saw before I had a bunch of file and directory in my home folder, but you can also filter basically with ls. So that can be very convenient to be able to filter, for example, only text file. And you can also filter by name. So if I wanted to find, I don't know what I have. I have something that starts by O. So anything that starts by O, you could write, I want what's in my home directory and I want it to start by O and I don't care the rest. Then, what I did say O. Y, ABC. Okay, I'm not sure. If I do that, yeah, they both start by T, that's fine. Yeah, you could also specify in the middle of the folder. So if I want something that has nano, it should only list me nano. Yeah, so you could also say, I want it to start by T and have nano in the name. So basically you can filter this way. You can filter this way by what it starts with, or whatever name is in the file. So that also can be super convenient if you want to list text file or a specific like bash script file, or so you have this star that's a wildcard when you do type ls. And so usually Linux people or Unix people don't like when you have space in a folder name or in any name, because when you're using command line, it's sometimes annoying. But if you have a folder that has a space, well, I don't, I won't show you, but basically you would need to put a backslash space. So backslash is kind of an escape character. That's good. And that will allow you to understand that the space is part of your file name. So if you have space in your folder or your file name, that's something you might need to pay attention. If you autocomplete, it should by default put the backslash before your space. So if you use the autocompletion, yeah, you'll see that it has a backslash space in your name. Okay, so I think that most of what on ls, and so it does tell you a lot of information on your file. And so let's, yeah, let's practice a bit the different command, try a bit the star thing to search for pattern. Yeah, try a bit on that on your file. So can do ls, can do more information on my files. So try to look at the permission, make sure you understand them. Try to sort by time. Try to reverse sort. And make sure it's like makes sense. Try to sort by size and so on. Gonna give you a bit of time to try on your own this type of thing, and then we're gonna continue. Okay. What do we have next? Oh yeah, that's quite important. Okay, so I hope you're familiar enough with ls. And then we're going to go see how we can copy files, move or rename files, delete directories. So all things you might want to do on files or directories. So first, copy. How can you copy a file command line? So the command for copying a file is cp, like copy. And how it works is cp, the file you want to copy, so the source, and where you want to copy it. You can copy it to a new file, you can copy it to a directory. It also has a couple of flags that can be useful. One is I, which means interactive. So basically, in case the copy command you ask him to do will overwrite a file, then it's going to ask you if you want to overwrite that file or not. Otherwise, if you don't put the I, by default, it's going to overwrite whatever might have had the same name. The second one is -r, which means recursive. And that's flag you would need to put if you want to copy a directory and all its content. So if you were to copy in a new name or somewhere else, a directory and all the files that are inside, you would want to put the -r. And this way you're going to copy the directory, all the files that are inside, and all the subdirectory and so on that are inside. And you can also add the -v, which means verbose. Basically, it's going to list whatever file is being copied. So if you want to make sure that everything gets copied, or if you want to see what's happening, then you can put the -v. Okay, so let's try to copy a couple of files. So let's copy our test nano. Oh, and you see when I did press T, and then I did tab to complete, and then it stopped at the underscore because I have multiple files. So if I was to press double tab again, it would tell me what file is. And then I just need to press N, which is the next letter, and I continue the completion. So this way it's very fast to like type file name or folder or path. So yeah, practice with tab. And let's copy it to nano2.txt, for example. So here I'm going to make a copy that just has another name. And so if I do ls in my folder, I can see that now I have also test nano2 that's appearing here. So I made a copy of my nano file. You can also copy folders. So let me move up one directory. And so I don't have the test. Yeah, I'm gonna copy the D1 because I have stuff in it. So given that it's a directory and that it has stuff in it, I want to add the -r. Otherwise, I won't be able to copy my directory. So it's gonna copy recursively all the files that are in my directory. So I'm gonna copy my D1 because I have stuff in my D1, and I'm gonna copy it in D1 copy, for example. And actually, I'm gonna also add the V so that we see what it's doing. And so you see, it's telling me it copied D1 to D1 copy. It copies a file test nano that was in D1 to D1 copy test nano, and so on. And now if I do ls on my D1 copy, you'll see I have all the files that were in my D1. So here I copied my D1 directory to another directory. So you can copy files, you can copy directory, as long as you put the -r. You can also copy files to another directory. So let's go back to my D1 folder. And I'm going to create a new directory, which is called test. And I'm going to copy the test vi. And here I'm going to say copy it in test. So given that my second argument is a directory, that it's going to copy my file, which is the first argument, in the directory. And so now if I list what's in test, you see I have my test VI. So you can copy one file to another file. You can copy one file to a folder. You can also copy folder to new folders. Yeah, and so last one is, so you can also specify, you don't need to copy something that's in your current directory. So you could copy something that's somewhere else into your current directory, for example. So if I was to copy D1, copy my test. So you can write the path. So here I'm going to copy the test VI. That's from my copy. I mean, that's the same, but just as an example, I'm going to copy it into, I want to copy it into my current directory. And that's where, for example, well, I actually don't need it here. Okay, actually, I'm going to use it to show you the I option. So here, I already have a test VI. So that's mean it should, so here I'm copying test VI from the D1 copy to my current directory. And given that in my current directory, I already have a test VI, if I put the I option, it should tell me that, it should ask me if I want to overwrite my current file. And it wouldn't ask me if I didn't put the I. So I'm gonna put the I to show you. And you see, it says, do you want to overwrite the test VI that I currently have in my current directory? And you can also see it did say current directory / test VI. So that's my current file. And I can either press Y to say yes, or press N to say no. So let's press N and say, oh, shoot, I don't want to overwrite. So that's why the command I could be useful. It's just going to warn you if you were to overwrite something. So here I said, no, I don't want to overwrite. So if it asks you, it's either Y for yes or N for no. And so now let's try again, but not put the I. And if I don't put this option I, then it's just going to overwrite and won't care. So just say, okay, that's done. So it didn't ask. So if you want to make sure that you don't overwrite file, then you might want to add the -I option. This way, when you copy, in case something has the same name, it will ask you. Okay, so yeah, try to copy a couple of files. Can we copy with different names? Sure, I think I did it at the beginning with test nano, but yes, so you can copy test VI. So you can copy, in different directory, you can copy with different name. So let's copy to the T1 copy. And if I was to say test vi2.txt, so it's going to copy in another directory with another name. And so I'm just going to list my T1 copy. And so now you see I also have a test vi2. And you can copy with a different name in the same folder. So if I just do copy test vi into test vi2, and I list, then I also have test vi2. So you can change name. So the double dot, so you can change name, you can copy in another directory, you can copy in another directory with a different name. And so someone asked what the double dot are. So the double dot are, I did say it at the beginning, it's mean parent directory. So here I'm copying, here I was copying the file that was in the day1 sibling folder. So if I do just, I mean, it's a good thing. You're gonna see more common. So if I was to press my current directory to print my current directory, you see I'm in D1 from Unix Workshop. So the double dot would bring me in Unix Workshop. So what my double dot here was mean, basically go to Unix Workshop, then go down to D1 copy, because in my Unix Workshop, I have So if I do ls of my parent directory, so that's Unix workshop, I have a bunch of folder. I did create a bunch of folder, including the D1 copy. So this cp command was copy the file that is like sibling D1 directory. So in Unix /D1 copy, and then this file. So yeah, so double dot is very useful when you want to like go, it's, yeah, go up. It's parent directory. Yes, so the dot dot is for location. Same with the dot here. So here I had, the file is testvi.txt, but that's the relative path. So that's the location. And here I'm saying I want to copy it to my current directory. So I need to tell him where I want to copy. So in that case, if you want to copy something from somewhere else to your current directory, you need the dot at the end to say, copy it to my current directory. If I was in Unix directory, no, I wouldn't have. So I wouldn't have this double dot. So here I'm Unix workshop. And so if I wanted to do the same copy, which was this one, then no, that wasn't this one. This one, I would just say copy D1 copy testvi, and I would say copy it into D1. So I would have to change that. So yes, the double dot and the dot are for location. Okay, so now we know to make files, to copy them. And so there is still a bunch of things that we can do with files. We can move files. So mv is the command to move files. So if you just want to move the location of your file and not necessarily copy, you can do that. And the syntax is basically the same as copy, and flag are also mostly the same. So you would move from one place to another place, so from source to destination. And move, basically, it's also the same command you would use to rename stuff. So if you want to change a name, basically you would move from one name to a new name, kind of. So we can try that. You can move file to change their name. You can move file to a new directory. So let's go back to my D1. And so let's list. So I have all this file in my D1. So I can move test nano dot, I have multiple one. So let's move the .txt, and so I'm moving, so I'm renaming, and I want to rename as nano new .txt. So I'm moving from one name to another. And if I do ls, you can now see that I had my test nano that was here, that's not here anymore. And now I have this new nano new.txt. So I just changed its name. I just renamed it. But you can also move. So I could do move my nano new, for example. And I can move it in another folder. So I can move it in my parent directory. So that would just take this file and move it in one directory. I could also do the -day1 copy if I wanted to move in my sibling directory, but let's do that. And now if I list my parent directory, you see I have this nano new that's here. And if I list my current directory, I don't have this nano new anymore. So that's how you can move files or rename files with this mv command. And so the next command is remove file. So you can also want to delete files sometimes. That can be useful. So delete file is rm. So for remove, so you can remove file or directory, and same, the flags are very similar to copy. Okay, so I have another question on move, so let me answer that before going to remove. How can you move file to a folder that's lower as opposed to higher in the directory? Okay, so let's go back. So I'm gonna go to Unix Workshop. Then if I want to move, I could still move, but I need to tell where the file is. And in that case, the file could be in D1. So I would specify the path of the file that's in a lower directory. So test vi, and I could move it in my current directory. So I could do that. That like the opposite of what I just did. So if I'm in Unix Workshop, I would specify the location of my file, but in one of the lower directory, and then I would move it either to my current directory or to another directory if I want another directory. So yeah, you basically just need to specify the path for your source and destination. And so with the relative path, either you need to specify the path of your source or the path of your destination, depending on where you are. But yeah, basically you need to, it's all relative to where you are. So you, in any case, need to specify the path relative to where you are. But if it's up or down, it's exactly the same. It's just a different path that you need to take. Okay. Yeah, so now let's go back to remove file. So remove file, it has the same syntax as copy and move. So you have the I for interactive, so same, it's gonna ask you, are you sure you want to delete this file? So kind of like with the copy. You also have the -R. So same, if you want to remove directories, you definitely will need to add the -R. And so if you do remove a directory with the rm-r, you're going to remove the directory and any files that's in that directory of any of its subdirectory. And you can also have the -v with verbose. Okay, let's try to remove some file. Oops. So here in my Unix workshop, I have this nano new. So let's remove this nano new. So I can do rm and same, the path of my file. So here I'm going to remove nano new. And if I do the ls, then it disappeared. And same, you don't have to be in the same directory of your file. You can also specify a path. So I could say, I want to remove day one copy. And what do I have? Test vi.txt. So here I'm specifying, okay, I need to remove, not the ls. So here I'm going to remove the test vi that's in the day one copy folder. So I can do that. And now if I list what is my D1 copy, I don't have the test vi.txt. And so, so you can try the I option. That's going to ask you to confirm if you want to delete. So let's try to delete D1 copy test nano 2, for example. And C is going to ask, do you want to remove regular file, blah, blah, blah. And same as before, you need to either say Y for yes or N for no. So here I'm going to say yes. And now if I list my D1 copy folder, it removes the test nano 2. And you can sometimes want to remove a full directory. So I'm going to remove the copy I made. And to do that, I'm going to have to specify the -R option, because otherwise it's not going to remove the directory. And so now if I list my folder, the D1 copy is gone. So yeah, so that's how you remove files. And one thing, when you remove a file in Linux, it's not like under Mac or Windows where you have a trash collection of all the deleted file. On Linux, you don't. So when you delete something, well, you don't have a trash to recover them, so they're deleted. And Huffman too has some recovering option. I never tried it, or but yeah. So when you type some rm command to delete some file, I usually check twice before pressing enter to make sure I'm not deleting everything I don't want to. And if you want, you can also add the I option. If you want to make sure, or having ask every time it's going to delete a file, ask you if you really want to delete it. I know I don't often use the I option, mostly because I tend to delete directory that have a lot of file in it, and I don't want to have to press yes like 100 times. So I would usually check before what's in it. But if you're not sure, and if it's only a couple of files, then you can definitely use I option so that it asks you. Okay, there's another command that you can use, and if you unsure, that can be convenient. So there is another option to remove directory, which is rmdir. It's also to remove a directory, but it's only works on empty directory. So if you were to do that command on a directory that's not empty, it's not going to let you. So if I was to try that on my D1 that's not empty, rmdir, it would say failed to remove directory not empty. So that can prevent you from yourself in case you just want to remove a directory that you think it should empty. Then you can do that. So I could do that on D5, for example, that's empty. Okay, so here I did it on D5, and if I list, my D5 is gone. But it's only going to work if your directory is empty. So if you think your directory should be empty and you want to remove a directory, then you could use rmdir instead of rm-r. Okay, and so a couple of tips. So all of those commands work quite similarly. So they do have the same type of options, the -i, the -r. And you can also do that on multiple files at a time. So you could copy multiple files to a new folder, or you could remove multiple files at a time. So you don't have to do it one file by file. So you could say something like, copy file 1, file 2 into my new directory. Basically, the last one is the destination, but anything that's before will be all the file you want to move or delete or copy. So all these are going to be copied into your new directory. And you can also remove multiple files at a time. And same as with ls, you can also use the star. So you can move file or remove file based on their name. So if you were to want to remove all the text file, you could type rm star.txt, and it would delete all the text files that are in your current directory. You could move files that have a specific name or specific extension and so on with the star. So you don't have to do that file by file. Yeah, and so next thing we're gonna see is how to avoid accidentals. So you see it's easy. With RM, you could like involuntarily remove something you don't want to. So it's always useful if you make a backup on an external hard drive, for example. You could also modify your personal Linux environment, like, we'll see later, but you could create a shortcut or an alias that would make you always use the I option, for example. So you could change the default behavior of RM or move to use with I option by default. And as I already showed you, you could also change your write access to your file. So remove your write permission to the file you really don't want to delete or modify. Actually, I'm gonna word it like, I'm gonna show you T1. So I'm gonna change the write option of one of these files. And so if you try to remove a file that you don't have write, it should tell you you can't do that, or it should ask you, are you sure you want to do that, even if you just do RM. So let's remove the write option. So to, again, as I remember, to change the permission, here I'm gonna change my user, so my self permission. I'm gonna remove the write, the writing permission, modifying permission, and let's do that on the test. What do you have? Test vi2.txt. So if I do ls, so no, this one doesn't have the write. And now if I try to remove this file, it's gonna ask you, it's gonna say, are you sure you want to remove this write protected file? So you can still delete it because it's your own, but at least it's gonna ask you, even if you don't put the -i option. So I'm gonna say no. So this way you shouldn't accidentally remove it, because it's, in any case, even without the I option, it will ask you. Okay, so next thing, if you want to make a backup, so I mean, you can always copy all your file, but it's usually convenient to have an archive backup. This way, even if you want to copy to your laptop, then it's only one file you need to copy, and it's also compressed, so it's like not as big. And even if you keep them on Hoffman 2, you could make backup and remove your write option to your backup so that you don't accidentally delete your backups. So you can create an archive or a backup using the tar command. So tar means tape archive. Basically, what it's going to do is create a compressed archive in one file. So I'm going to go back to the parent directory because it's simpler. So it's simpler if you create an archive of like folder by folder. And so it's also easier if you're not in the folder you want to create a backup for. So let's go through what does that mean, and then we'll try it. Okay, so tar. So you can either create an archive or extract the archive to recreate your folder. So to create an archive, that's the command czfv. So let's go back to what's mean. I'm gonna... So the first flag, C, means create. It's going to create a new archive. And so C means it's going to compress it. So C is going to compress it. The V is going to list what's been processed. And the F means that you want to put that in a file. And so what you can do is create archive of folders. So you would, for example, if I want to create an archive of my D1 folder, I would say ZVF. And then you can put whatever name you want. Usually you'll keep the same name at whatever you're making the archive. So you would have tar.tz, and then you're gonna specify here, I want to compress my D1 folder. And then you would press enter, and then it's gonna tell you what it's doing. So it's like processing this file, then this subdirectory, then the file that are in the subdirectory, and so on. And now if you do an ls, then you'll have a d1.tar.gz. So that's like the archive of your D1 folder. And so if you have an archive, then if you involuntarily delete your D1 folder, then you could like just extract again the archive. So I'm gonna just do that. So if I was, oh, I delete my D1 folder, that's bad. Oh, and I did remove the writing protection of one of the files. So it's asking me for that specific file if I want to delete it. So that's why you might want to do that if there is some file you don't want to remove. So here I'm going to say, yes, I'm going to remove it. And so now if I list, then my D1 folder is gone. But I can re-extract based on the archive I made. And so to extract, it's almost the same. But instead of creating, instead of the C option, you're going to use the X option. That means extract. So you're going to do tar x xevf. So basically almost the same. And then you're going to say which one. So d1 tar.gz. And so it's going to also tell you what it's doing. So it's like extracted all this file. And if I list again my folder, then my D1 folder is here again. And then you can list, and then you see I have all the same file that I had previously. So that can be convenient once in a while to like make an archive or your folders, and also like either copy them to your laptop or even leaving them on OffMat2, but maybe removing the write on those. Yeah, and someone did ask, can you use zzip directly, and what's the difference? So tar does use zzip compression, but I'm not sure if you can use zzip directly on folder. You might, and then I guess it would work, but I'm not completely sure if you can zzip a full folder without doing an archive. Okay, so yeah, so I just did that. You can try on your own to create archive of like your D1 folder, for example, and removing your D1 folder that just I did, and like recreating your archive. So I'm gonna give you a bit of time to do that. And we'll continue before we run too short on time. And same, so I mean, some command have so many options you might forget what flag you need. So like Google will help you. You can go to the man page, like to check against the option and so on. That's also why the man page is useful, because when you're on the command line, you don't necessarily want to pull out Google. So having the man page in the command line is also quite useful. Okay, so let's continue the couple of things we have for today. Okay, next thing is create symbolic links. So what are links? Links basically create a shortcut between files. Okay, so someone asked, how can you copy a folder to your own laptop when working from directory environment? So we're going to see that later. So that's also why I want not to lose too much time. So I didn't do a second break, because we have a couple of things still to see. So we'll see that just later, how to transfer file from OffMan2 to your laptop and vice versa. So the next thing that can be useful is create links. There is like two types of links, but the one you're going to use most often is a symbolic link. So symbolic link is basically, it's just a shortcut. So you have a file or a folder, and then you can create a link that's a shortcut to whatever this path is. So actually, I'm going to go back to my directory to show you. So the light blue here are actually links. And you can see, like I have one here that I called scratch, and you can see where it's pointing to. So it's a shortcut for use scratch delete photo. So basically I just create a link that's a shortcut to that more annoying path, which is my scratch directory. And so on Huffman 2, you have your home directory. And so you, by default, you only have like 20 gigabyte allowed on your home directory. And sometimes when you're processing file, then you might need more space. So you also have a scratch directory that's only a temporary directory, but where you have up to, I think, 2 terabytes of space. So if you need like more space, and it's also faster when you write a lot of stuff. So when you're doing some processing, so it's usually when you process, you would write on the scratch, but it's only temporary for a week or two. It's going to be deleted, but it can be convenient, like to create a shortcut to your scratch directory. And I need to drink more. So shortcuts are permanent. So that's why it can be convenient to make shortcut. And that's why, like for the scratch directory, that's typically one of the shortcuts you will want to do. So they stay there. And so you're going to want to do soft link, because soft link, you can do it on directory, and hard link doesn't work on directory. So soft link is really just a shortcut. And so what the difference is, if you between a hard link and a soft link, if you delete your file, then soft link doesn't work anymore. But the hard link doesn't link to the path, it links to the physical like address on your disk where the data is. So if you were to remove that, a hard link will still work, but not a soft link. But you can only create hard links on files. And I find most of the time I really want to make a link is mostly to a folder. So usually you'll tend to use a soft link, a symbolic link with the -s option. And so yeah, as I said, for your scratch directory can be very useful to create a symbolic link. Also, if your group bought some storage space and like you have like reference genome or something like that, and instead of typing whole the path, then it could be convenient to create a soft link. So how do you create a soft link? So basically it's, so you need to do ln for link. So I can make a link. And so S to say it needs to be a soft link or symbolic link. And then let's say I want to create a link. And so it's actually opposite. So here you need to create where the link points to first. So I want my link to point to Unix workshop. And then you need to specify the name of your link. So you want to tell, for example, actually I want my link to go to Unix workshop D1, and I'm gonna call it UW D1. And so if I do that, and I list my home directory, because here I'm in my, oops, and I forgot a space. And you can see I create this link here, and you can see it's also specified that's a link, and it's also in light blue. And that, that goes to Unix/D1. So you can specify link either with a relative path, and then it's relative to where the link is, or with an absolute path. So like I did here with my scratch. So with my scratch, I specify the absolute path. Here I just specify the relative path. So both work. And what's convenient with link is that you can browse as you were with the normal shortcuts. So if I browse, if I say ls lw d1, then I see everything that's in my d1. And you can do it with folders. You can basically list your file. I could list with my wildcard like all my text file. And yes, I have only one in test. So basically you can browse it, copy from it, etc. The same way you would do with the normal path. And it's permanent. So you only need to do it once. Okay, and we still have, okay, so I guess I'm going to skip that for sake of time. It's how to search for file based on name. But we're going to go in the last half hour we have to how can you copy things from your computer to Huffman 2 or vice versa. So there's a couple of ways you can do it command line. So one way is SCP, which is Open SSH Secure File Copy. So ACP for secure copy. And well, it's not super convenient. I mean, I don't think any of you will do that. So, but that's one option. So you need to do that on your local computer. So you need to be in like the command line of your local computer, not on Huffman 2. So if you want to transfer something from your computer to Huffman 2, you would, it's like CP, but basically you have to write the path of Huffman. So you CP from your local file. So you're going to copy this file, which is locally located to, and then you need to specify you want like your remote host, username, Huffman 2, and then the path of where you want to copy this file to. And so that's kind of not convenient because you need to know the exact path on Huffman 2 where you want to put stuff. But yeah, you can do that. And similarly, if you were to want to copy from Huffman 2 to your local computer, it would just have to reverse. So you would say, I want to copy this thing that's on Huffman 2. So same, you would need to know the exact path of what you want to copy, and then you want to copy it to, then that would be your local current directory or any other directory on your local computer. And so that's always from, you need to do this command from your local computer and not from Huffman 2. There is a second option that's a bit better. That's also command line. You can use SFTP. So you would connect through SFTP. It's going to ask a password. And what's more convenient about SFTP compared to STP is that you can list your file both on your computer and on the remote. And same, you also need to initiate the connection from your local computer if you do SFTP. But yeah, it's more convenient because you can list your file, so you don't have to know the full path. You can check it at the same time that you're trying to copy. And you can also change directory both on your local computer or on Huffman 2. And then when you're ready, if you want to grab something to Huffman 2, you would type get whatever file you want to get to your local computer, or if you want to do the opposite, you would use but, and then you would disconnect. But honestly, I am not sure how many people use command line to copy their file to Huffman 2. And so that's where you need SFTP client. So for SFTP client, there is a couple of options. So you can use Windows SCP, FileZilla, CyberDuck. So that's like the most useful. If you install Moba Xterm for SSH client, it also does SFTP clients. So you can do that. I'm going to go through those quickly to show you how to set up, and if you want to install it, and then we can try to do it together. So that's kind of the last thing for today. So yeah. So I know a lot of Mac people like CyberDuck. So on CyberDuck, you would add a new connection here, and then you would select SFTP on top, and then you would write your server name, so huffman2.idre.ucla.edu. Support is 22, so that's it should already say 22, so you can leave it that way. Then you would put your username and your password. And then you would connect, and then you would have access to the file that are on Huffman 2. And then you could right click and copy to your folder, or if you open like the Mac Finder or your Windows Explorer or Mac Finder, then you can also drag and drop between the two. but either right click or drag and drop. If you right click, it's going to say download, and then it will show Windows with all your downloads. A lot of people also like FileZilla, and similarly, you need to set up the host. So here you'll have your Hoffman2 host, your username, you'll put in your password. It should put the port 22 by default, and then you would do click connect. And then on one side, you can browse your local computer, and on the other side, you would browse your the Hoffman2 cluster, the file. And then, so you can go into the folder you want, and same, you can drag and drop between the two windows here. And then your transfer will show here. And for mobile extern, so I'm gonna have it here. So if you go to your terminal, I need to connect again. So once with mobile extern, when you're connected to your terminal, actually it's already open on the left here. It's open SFTP client. So you could right click and download. And same, if you have another file explorer open, you can also drag and drop there. So I think I would say 99.9% of the people are probably going to use one of those FTP clients to download file between the computer and Hoffman2, because it's way more convenient to be able to use the graphical interface for that. So yeah, please, we have very little thing to go, so I'm going to let you a bit of time if you want to set it up. And I can go back to how to set it up if you need me to. Because that's probably what you're going to use to transfer file if you want to. So let me know if you want me to go back to CyberDuck settings or FileZilla settings for you to set up everything correctly. Yeah, so you can also delete files. If you right click, you should have delete. And so that also would use kind of the RM. So it would also be permanently deleted. So you'd be able to do copy, to move, to delete file directly without having to do the command line things that we saw. Let me know if you have an issue in setting up the SFTP client. I can go back. So that I would say these are the most commonly used SFTP client. Yes, I'm going to go back to CyberDuck. So on CyberDuck, you click Open Connection here. And then make sure you choose SFTP in the protocol. Then type the Hoffman2 server, Hoffman2 address, username, password, and then connect. And so if you do that, you should see the couple of files you created today and the couple of directories, so you can browse through them and try to transfer things from Hoffman2 to your computer just to make sure you can transfer thing. And someone else asked what's the difference between hard link and soft link. The main difference is one will refer to the path and the other will refer to the physical location on disk. So softlink refer to a path, and hardlink will refer to this physical location. So that's why hardlink only works on file and not directory. So if you want to do a link to a directory, you'll need to use a softlink. And it's going to also change the way things happen when you delete the original file. So if you delete the original file and you created a soft link to the file of the directory, then the soft link is not going to work anymore. But if you created a hard link to file, then and if you remove the original file, given that the hard link points to the physical location of the disk, then it's not going to have deleted the data, and the hard link would still work. But basically, it's like if you had a copy, but without having a copy. Okay, I hope you guys had enough time to set up the SFTP client, and I'm gonna continue on the few things we have left for today. Okay, so one of the things we have left for today is how to make shortcut or how to change your environment. So I told you, like you could change, if you want your move to always use the I option, you could set an alias that basically change the behavior of your move command to always use the I option. And you could do alias for things if you want to, but you could do an alias, and basically that's your new command name, and that's the command you want to execute when you type this command. So like you could make an alias such that cp basically always does a cp-i. The other options are still going to work, but this way you're sure you'll never forget the I option, for example. So you can do it for your current session. Oops, I did go back, sorry. So if I was to type it here and make my alias, it's only going to work on my current Huffman 2 session. So that would just be a temporary alias. And so if you want to, so you can do that for the remove and for the move command. If you want to do that permanently, so that it stays when you log out and log in again, you'll need to change your bash profile. So what this file is, it's basically how you customize your environment, bash environment. And so every time you log in, it's going to load this file. So every time you log in, it's going to apply whatever aliases you added there. And so basically to change it, you could use vim or nano, as we've seen. And so it's in your home directory, and then it starts with a dot. So we haven't seen any file that starts with a dot. Basically, if you were to do ls, you have a -a option that lists all the files, including the file that start with dot. And basically in Linux, a file that starts with dot is basically a hidden file. So if you were to do ls-a, you have a bunch of files that start by a dot. And that's all hidden file. That's basically user configuration and so on. And so this particular file is basically your user configuration for your bash profile. So that's where you could add some shortcut. So that's my file. So if I wanted, I could add here my aliases. So I would type alias cp equal, for example, cp-i, and then I would right quit. And so this way, if I write it in that file, then when I start again and I relog in to Huffman 2, this setting is going to always be applied. And so if you want also, this setting is only going to be applied when you log in. So if you change it right now and you want to apply right now, you need to make sure it's reload that file and what that you would do with the source. So if I source that file, it's going to just reapply every setting that are in that file, even for my current session. But you wouldn't just need to do it. I mean, you would just need to do it today because that's when you modify your file. So whenever you modify that file, you need to reload it. But if you don't modify your file, then whenever you connect, it's going to be automatically applied. So you might want to add these alias to your profile such that you don't involuntarily remove stuff, for example. Yeah. And so to finish today, so a couple of things you might see, common errors. What does bash syntax mean? Which bash syntax? What was in the bash file or? I'm not sure I understand the question from Spiridon. So bash profile. So bash profile is a normal file. It's just a file where you can change the way bash interact with you or you interact with bash. So here I basically told bash that whenever it's run a new terminal, I want to apply a couple of settings, like adding aliases. Like I want him to, when I write CP, to understand it as CP-I and not just CP. This way I'll never forget to put the -I. So basically you can customize a couple of things. Yeah, it's basically a customization for your bash environment profile, this file. What else would you put in there? Yeah, actually, let's go back. So here you see you have some path. So if you install some, so that's basically where it's look for softwares. So if you install softwares, usually the software might add things to your path. So it's going to add something here. But if you create some software that you install into a specific folder, then you might want to add that too. You can add aliases. I think that's mostly what you would use this file for. Yeah, so a couple of errors you could see is like command not found. So usually that would mean you probably made a typo in the command name. You could see error like cannot create, file doesn't exist, or file exists. So if you're trying to create something and it does already exist, it's probably going to tell you that it can't do what you're asking him to do. Because that's already exists. If you try to delete something that doesn't exist or to go to a directory that doesn't exist, it's going to also tell you doesn't exist. So if I were to try to cd test, I don't have test folder, so it's going to tell me no such file directory because I don't have any folder that's called test here. So usually that's mean that it doesn't exist or you mistyped it. So yeah, if you had a directory and you mistype it, then it's not gonna know that you did a typo. So it's gonna tell you it doesn't exist. You could have things like, oh, you forgot something. So like in this command, I forgot to say where I wanted to copy the file, or like in move command, then it should tell you there's something missing. You didn't tell me everything, so I can't guess for you. So that, yeah, so the most common error will be this. And so whenever you're done with Huffman2, and when you want to close the connection, you would just type exit. So whenever you leave this workshop today, just type exit to close your connection. And I'm just gonna go to summary. So what did we see today? We saw how to display your current directory. We saw how to create new directories. how to move from one directory to another, how to list file in directories. We also saw how we can modify file permission. We learned how to visualize file with VI or Nano, visualize and create file. We learned how to copy file or folder, move or rename file or folder, delete file or folder, create aliases. Also learned how to look in the manual for more information, how to create link, and had another extra comment about find, but that's okay. That's to search. Actually, we still have 5 minutes, so I can teach you that. How to change your password, how to create an archive, and how to transfer a file, either command line or using SFTP client. And so I have a couple of practice, but I guess I'll send you the file so you can definitely try it on your own. And the last thing I skipped because I was worried about time that we can go is the find command. Yes, you'll have access to the slide. I'll give you access so that you can look at the practice and remember what we saw. So the one thing I skipped is find. So find is a command where you can find file based on name. And so you could basically type something like find, and you want to find, here it's your current directory, and you can specify a name. So I guess it's slightly with ls, it can be more convenient if you have a complicated name. And also it's going to look into subdirectory, which ls doesn't do. So if I do that, and I'm going to specify I want to find normal file, so that's the type F. So I want to find normal file that end with txt that are somewhere within my current directory. So here it's my home folder, but oh, I mistyped something. What did I do? Path must precede expression. Let's say my Unix workshop. No. And okay, I'll need to. Did work before. So that's when I would like check the manual if I do something wrong. Maybe I didn't. It should work. Find name. I don't know why it didn't like. I did try that earlier. Maybe I need the quote. Yeah, that's probably what I need. Okay, so basically I forgot the quote, so I'm going to add the quote in the, well, yeah, I have plenty of text file. So basically it's going to look anywhere in your current directory, including the subdirectories. So when you remember the name of your file, but you don't necessarily in which directory it is, that can be really convenient because it's gonna, so let's say I want my test nano. I should still have it. I forgot where it is. So it's gonna look into my current directory and all the subfolder of my current directory and try to find something that's called test nano. And I have a bunch of files, so it might take some time, but that's more convenient than ls because ls won't search into subdirectory. So if you want to find something and you forgot where it is, you can use find. And I have way too many files. So I'm going to try in Unix workshop. So you can specify in which directory you want to search. And it didn't find it, so maybe I removed it. Okay, so here I'm looking at all the text file that it finds in Unix workshop, and that's his answer. And you see it's also look in the subdirectory. So that can be convenient when you forgot where you put something. So yeah, so that's kind of all for today. And so yeah, that's all we saw. Yeah, so before closing, just type exit to close your SSH connection to Upman 2, and that's all for today. And that's perfectly on time. Yep.